Hello, thank you for watching, and we're about to record our full discussion for Once Upon a Time's episode, The Savior. Subscribe at oncepodcast.com if you're not already, but you can comment here on YouTube or the live stream if you're watching us live. And here we go with the podcast. And that is playing through the wrong speakers.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm wearing the wrong trousers.
And off we go. I have the wrong trousers over here.
Whoa.
Right here.
Whoa, you really do.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. You're listening to Once, episode 258, The Savior. Welcome back to another episode of Once, the unofficial podcast for ABC's TV show, Once Upon a Time. I'm Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin.
And we have watched and rewatched The Savior episode, and we are ready to discuss this in full detail. By the way, happy International Podcast Day, September 30th. I hope you're celebrating along with us. I'm doing some things in the greater Cincinnati area, as well as tweeting and posting and all kinds of things with the hashtag Podcast Day. They celebrate podcasts every September 30th. International Podcast Day, internationalpodcastday.com if you want to find out more about that. Let's jump into talking about this episode.
Jump.
In initial reactions, I pointed out that we got only one flashback, but there are still kind of two separate storylines to follow.
True.
In the way that we'll follow this. There's Rumple's storyline, which has no intersection with the rest of the episode. So we'll address that separately, but I want to start with talking about Flying Jafar scene.
Yeah, we'll get to Belle's Dreamland and theme park later on.
It's the new ride at Disneyland. So first of all, I thought that what Jafar was shooting looked very TIE Fighter-like, Star Wars-like. It didn't seem magical.
Yes.
It seemed more sci-fi.
His magic carpet ride laser bolts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
a whole new world.
It is. I'd say that's just a production thing, not really something worth discussing, even though I brought it up, which wasted your time a little bit. The subtitles call this character that's running Emir, E-M-I-R.
Irrelevant.
But, yeah. He poofs into a pile of dust. That's what his tombstone says. His life amounted to a pile of dust.
I like how I've seen it twice, and I was kind of like, who did what? I was busy. I'm sure that both times I was so completely distracted by New Jafar that, he could kill several people, and it would take me a while to catch up.
So rewatching this episode,
did you like him more or less?
That's what I want to ask you.
Oh.
For me, I still like him the same amount. I think as a Jafar, he's a good Jafar. I think he fits the role perfectly. It's Oded Fair, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the name. And it was Naveen Andrews who played Jafar in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. Now, Naveen Andrews did a great job. I think he really developed the role better as Once Upon a Time in Wonderland progressed. That first episode, I didn't think he was a good fit.
He wasn't an obvious Jafar because the only Jafar we knew was the animated Aladdin.
Right.
So this guy might even match the animated one better, I guess. It's so hard to tell with these little short scenes because the material they're given is so sparse. It's very, I feel like, and not just this one actor, but so often these sort of newly introduced people, it's like they're just sort of straining at the role, like they're making it happen, and it's almost just a little over the top. It doesn't have a lot of subtlety because it's not a subtle moment, and they're not given any real chance. It's like big. It's like a picture drawn with markers, and just it's big and it's flashy, and then it's over, and like, well, I don't know if we're ever going to see him again or not.
I really think we will. That he's an important character to the Aladdin storyline. And if Aladdin is a savior to a different realm, and apparently every savior has a villain, hashtag unbreakable, which I can't even believe I just said hashtag like that. I am turning into
Verbally?
a millennial. I can't believe this. Even though I am a millennial, I'm a senior millennial. But I don't want to be a millennial, and I'm turning into one. But even with the little flashback that we got, I think it's a setup for we're going to see more, because we're going to see the parallels between Aladdin and Emma. We're going to see Jafar's battles with Aladdin. Why is Jafar this horrible menace to the kingdom, that the kingdom is in trouble and Aladdin is the only one who can save them? I think we will see a lot more of Jafar. And I think that little bit that he got to act, I think Oded nailed it. And I think he'll make a great Jafar. I wish they could get Naveen Andrews, but he's busy on another project called Sense 8. But that aside, the Jafar they got is a really good one. It's kind of like Robin Hood, okay? They did have to recast Robin Hood. And somewhere along the way, Kitsis and Horowitz said, well, Robin Hood did some kind of glamour spell to conceal himself so Rumple couldn't find him. Whatever. But here, I don't know if they'll explain it. Maybe every land has its own Jafar. And this isn't actually Agrabah.
Are you saying love the Jafar you're with?
Ooh, yeah. All that to say, Oded is a great Jafar. I wish it could be Naveen Andrews. It's not. I'm over that. This guy's great.
We're sorry that you're not the first Jafar cast on in the Once Upon a Time universe. Not your fault. Run with it. You'll do great. We'll all still be mad, but not at you.
What do you think about Aladdin's assistant?
Who?
The girl.
You would call her
Jafar,
the assistant?
Okay, so you think something.
Well,
there are a lot of theories about her.
So I thought that first scene was rather violent. I did not make the connection until later on that we ever saw her again.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about that scene in the beginning was actually, for me, and this might be my problem, but it was rather forgettable. For me, it was somewhat disconnected from the rest of the story. And it's not in the overall framework of the season, I'm sure, but it was sort of like it happened, and then we focused on other things.
Well, let me point out a few details to you.
Okay.
Yes, it's the same girl in the opening as the girl who says she's an oracle, not the oracle, but
was once called.
Yeah,
an
was
oracle.
once called an oracle. In this opening scene, Jafar whooshes her against the wall, and she gets a cut on her right cheek.
Which, let's be honest, if she ever met the most similar character to hers, she would feel like that was nothing.
Okay, yeah, true. Also, back in Storybrooke, when we see that girl again, she still has some kind of wound or an obvious result from a wound, like almost a scar, but it looks kind of fresh, like still red in that same spot.
I thought it looked rather new as well. It doesn't even look like a scar. It looks like a bruise.
Yeah.
And of course, the other that I was referring to would be the seer from Rumpelstiltskin's days, whose eyeballs live in her hands and whose face is stitched up.
And believe it or not, you will hear from the seer again in this episode, because I've got something on that based on some feedback we received.
How do we know that's true? Is it a prophecy?
It is a prophecy.
Wow. Are you a
And you
seer
can
now?
trust me because I'm on a podcast.
Huh.
But the other detail of note is in Aladdin's little hut there in the middle of nowhere, there is a red bird.
Also known as his house.
There's a red bird in a cage.
Yeah. He's tiny.
And a red bird leads Emma to the oracle. So there are all of these little clues tying them back together. Now, is that...
A little bird told her how to find the oracle?
Yeah. Is that bird Lago, like from...
Iago?
Yeah, sorry. Bad pronunciator of names. Is that the same bird as we see in Aladdin? They designed it to look like it, so I'm going to assume yes. That we'll probably hear its name at some point. But
Calm yourself, Iago.
here is one theory about that girl, the Oracle. Lindsay said maybe the once twist here is that she's the genie we know in Aladdin.
A genie who can be injured and knows the future and doesn't live in a bottle?
Okay, good point.
Not to poke too many holes all at once.
Now, Terry, aka Beans827, also thought the same thing. And by the way, I wanted to read this kind of little note from Terry saying, just found your podcast at the end of last season, and I have to say that I love it. I listen as I do laps around a track for exercise. Makes the work so much easier to do. So thanks so much for all your great insight.
Wow, we help people run around tracks.
Or run in circles. That's what this podcast is all about.
We keep you running in circles.
Yep.
So we don't have to.
Just like the show does.
What?
So here's another crazy idea about the Oracle.
Crazy
And
cartoon.
we might get into this a little bit more later as well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do want to save this for later. Let me look back over the notes. Yeah, I'll save that for later. There are some other theories. So this is where I'll pick up. There are some other theories about the Oracle's identity and it maybe being not who she claims to be or who we think she is. But I'll get into those.
She's Balefire from the future.
Or Henry from the future. I'll get into those other theories later in the podcast.
Okay. Do you feel like it would be good homework to go watch Once Upon a Time in Wonderland if one has not previously? Or would it just be frustrating because we have new Jafar?
I don't know.
Because I feel like we know a lot about the genies, and that might put some theories to rest if you've seen all of that genie stuff.
And Once Upon a Time in Wonderland is a nice little series that has a nice final ending to it.
It's worth watching.
It's fun. It's a bit whimsical, but once you get past that or get used to that, it's a fun series that has a good storyline and beautiful ending and beautiful things about love and forgiveness in it.
And it's a perfect example of how when you choose the ending, great things happen even when you have flaws.
Now, in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, they did discuss more about the laws of magic. And in fact, they kind of changed them a little bit because they changed them to include you can't change the past. So they changed the laws of magic to include that you can't change certain laws of magic. But the important thing, you learn more about genies and how genies work and certain limitations they have. You learn about what a genie is. My one concern is that based on how they've treated Once Upon a Time in Wonderland inside of Once Upon a Time proper.
Yes.
That it's as if Wonderland is not canon. Now, in Wonderland, they treat Once Upon a Time and Storybrooke as canon to Wonderland, but it's not really working the other way around.
Well, but Will was present.
Yeah.
So...
But it really doesn't make sense why he's present, and then he just disappeared again. We never got his backstory in Once proper.
There are so many things that just feel like a reaction to fans. Like Will showed up, he got used oddly. Everybody kind of, whereas he was the favorite from Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, in Once proper, everybody was like, who's this jerk? And then when they dared to dip their toes into whatever his story might be, because they always seem to have casting problems, I assume is why, and certain things that were very important to that story seem to have been ruined by his being brought to Once proper. I think that's why he disappeared quietly, so they would not further ruin their previous good work.
Your questions are pointless.
Yes. Yes.
So here's something else to think about. When Jafar was talking to Aladdin, Jafar basically said that Aladdin could have escaped this fate. Now, what fate? I don't quite know. Is it the fate of what I call Savior Shakes, the Savior Shakes?
My goodness.
But How could he have escaped his fate? Is it like you could have escaped your fate if you had only bowed down and served me?
Well, maybe he means the fate that Aladdin is seeing,
Also
which I
possible.
assume is why the Oracle, or the girl formerly known as Oracle, was visiting Aladdin for the same reason that Emma was visiting her.
So if Aladdin could have escaped his fate, I think we'll find out if Aladdin is truly beyond saving. My guess
Villains
is...
say whatever they can to hurt people, though.
Yeah. My guess is that we will see that Aladdin couldn't save himself, but Emma may not be beyond that point of no return. She may still be able to save herself. She may still be able to escape that fate.
Not if they're going to be honest with what they've already shown us.
Yeah.
But
And-
maybe it's just true from a certain point of view.
Yeah. And here's a point of view about lowercase saviors in Once Upon a Time.
It took becoming a hero for you to completely come apart. But that's what always happens to saviors, isn't it?
It's the fate of saviors.
You give and give and give, and for what? They pick the fruit, they cut the branches, and all that's left is this shaky stump. That's why you never ever hear these words about a savior. They lived happily ever after.
And hopefully you don't do a drinking game with the titles of the episodes because ouch, that scene.
So he says these things, but it would seem if a savior can be defeated, does that make them a savior?
I suppose from a literary sense, if you're looking at a character type that is lowercase savior, then the function is to save everybody.
Right.
Regardless of what their fate is. Perhaps. Being not a literary expert in almost any way, that's my take on it.
Now, I want to get biblical here for a moment. The Savior from the Bible, Jesus Christ, died, and that was his sign of victory. Well, no, not, sorry, I totally
Not that
messed
part.
that. Yeah, not that part. That was a step. That was what everyone thought was the defeat. That was the saviors don't get happy endings kind of look of things. And, Savior doesn't live happily ever after. But Jesus rose from the dead 3 days later, which that was the sign of victory. That was proof of the saviorness, a word that I'm going to use several times in this podcast.
Oh.
And so there's, I think, looking at it kind of from a biblical perspective, a savior would have a final victory.
Mm-hmm.
And even in death, it would be a victory.
Right.
So if Emma dies, I think it would be a death of victory, not a death of defeat. Like a death to protect,
Right.
not a death out of failure.
Right. Then I don't know if you want to talk more about what she ultimately saw now or save that.
No, we'll save
Okay.
that. 18 minutes, and that's only the first scene.
Nice.
Okay. I didn't tell you this beforehand, but let's jump to the Rumple timeline.
Could that be a t-shirt for our podcast?
Let's
jump to the Rumple.
Let's jump to the Rumple.
What?
So I gave them all the
Oh, you
hashtag
did.
Rumple so we can follow this
Okay.
easily. One moment while we adjust our notes and see these easily.
You wouldn't want our notes bent out of shape.
Yes. You really should try the peppermint.
No, I shouldn't. This is the result of blurring my nerves. One day I'll try the peppermint.
after such long discussion on the first scene, but it was the only flashback from this episode, and it set up a lot. I want to talk about the Rumple timeline of this.
I need to jump back to the first scene.
Okay. You just killed my transition, but that's
I
fine.
know.
I'll
That's
redo
all right.
it.
Oh, all right. Should I create my own segue then?
You can just jump into it because we're basically still on the flashback scene.
Cool. So as we're on this first scene, I want to say something about the very first part of the first scene. And I probably say this every year. Have we ever started a season without following someone on horseback racing through the countryside?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was thinking about that before I saw this episode.
I remember the first and second seasons very clearly, but with third, fourth, and fifth, we had the mid-season transitions, and I don't think the mid-season premieres followed that pattern, but I can't remember for the life of me the initial season premieres of those.
Third season, no, was Emma giving birth to Henry.
Oh, true.
Yeah. And then riding a boat.
Which is kind of
into
like riding a
Neverland.
horse through the countryside, but I'm not really sure
yeah.
how.
Yeah, it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
Such a leisurely stroll. And speaking of leisurely stroll, let's leisurely stroll into talking about Rumple.
Okay.
Because his timeline in this episode is really completely separate from everything else that happens in this episode.
It was a real snore.
So Rumple gave the keys to Storybrooke to hide
What if
in
you
exchange for the information. And we'll talk more about those keys in a little bit. But he learned about this place, the Temple of Morpheus. And it has...
Can we just talk for a moment about the way Hyde said all of that? You don't happen to have a sound clip of that, do you?
No.
He sounded very much like a video game narrator to me. And really, as you were playing the sound clip of Jafar, I'd really love to hear a conversation between Jafar and Hyde. I think it would sound hilarious. And maybe just a little overdramatic. Just a little. Not that Morpheus is overdramatic at all.
Morpheus was the god of dreams in Greek mythology, which I didn't realize until doing my research for the podcast. And now it makes a lot more sense why the character most of us think of when we hear the name Morpheus is the black guy from... Why have I got to say he's black? That just sounds racist to point out. Yeah, the black guy. The token black guy in the movie The Matrix. No, that's not what I mean. So sorry about that. Let me just do it this way. Really, what I should start doing is just like for anyone, for any Caucasian person, just say the white guy, or he's a white guy, or, just point it out like
We
that.
could start calling Emma the blonde.
Or the white girl.
Yeah. Yeah, the white girl.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That was great.
The character most of us think of when we hear the name Morpheus is the guy from The Matrix who offers Neo the pill, the red one or the blue one. And now it makes a lot more sense to me why he's named Morpheus, because in The Matrix, he was helping Neo to escape from a dream. Because Morpheus is the name of the god of dreams from Greek mythology. Makes perfect sense to me now. So as we're seeing this fake Morpheus in the dreams, or the one who is affectionately called Baby Mo.
Baby Mo. Was that a double meaning name?
Well, that's kind of convenient. Baby Mo could be... It's a nickname.
I mean, he
the
was
community
only
has.
pretending to be Morpheus.
Right.
So we're talking, again, about an unborn child with a knowledge of Greek mythology. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And also, everything that happens, if you watch this episode again, keep in mind that this is Baby Mo the whole time. And think about everything that Baby Mo is able to do. He seems to possess magical powers. Then again, this is in a dream. He has knowledge of the outside world. And he has knowledge of events that happened before he was born.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Including current events.
Yeah.
They're still before he
And
was born.
before he was even conceived.
Yes.
And he is claiming to be Morpheus, who may not actually exist or may actually exist. We've seen now that apparently Greek mythology does exist as a reality to Once Upon a Time's universe.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps Morpheus does exist, whether he's still alive or around, I don't know. So I'm starting to wonder, is Baby Mo special in some way?
Sure. I mean, everybody is, right?
Well, yeah, just like everybody else.
Yeah, just like everybody else. I don't think that would be preposterous. I don't know what the nature of that specialty would be, considering perhaps the most special element of his parentage is the dark one, and that's creepy.
Yeah.
And honestly, everything about this was creepy. Retroactively, by the time it was finished.
There are a lot of questionable things. A lot. Things that you do have to suspend disbelief. But at the same time, they could be hinting at something important to us.
You have to take disbelief out into a field and shoot it like a rabid dog. Unless there is further explanation offered, which I have hope. I choose to believe that this will all make sense.
One of the things that does make sense, at first I thought it doesn't make sense, is why is Belle in this dream world? But it was something small that Morpheus said.
Oh, yes, that actually did make sense to me.
Belle was pulled from the Red Room. That's not the way he said it, but he did say Belle will return to the Red Room. So yes, when she took that sleeping curse, she did go to the Red Room and was brought here by the sands.
Yes, and that actually made a little bit of sense.
Yeah. But then is the hourglass real? Or is it a concoction?
See, it was completely false. And I thought it was funny because when he said, blah, blah, when sand goes through hourglass, Belle will return to the burning Red Room, only this time forever. I was like, cool, dude, that's not the way this has ever worked. What happened to True Love's kiss? Are you doing this to her? What? It didn't make any sense. And to Rumple, it should also not have made any sense.
Well,
he knows how this works.
But if Baby Mo has strange knowledge of outside events, then it makes sense because Mo French said, I will not wake my daughter for you, Rumple. And Rumple can't successfully wake her, so it seems no one can wake her. Or
I know,
seemed before this.
But I think he should have called foul on it. And I think it exposed that he was concocting something.
There were some interesting little details inside of this scary version of the castle. Like there's a table of empty shoes that Rumple was looking at. Probably from all of the people he murdered, at least in this version of him.
Children.
Yeah, their pelts. And there were torture elements throughout. Now, that mirror in there where he sees himself as Rumple or as Belle sees him in the dream, that's the same mirror that Regina looked into when she said, "The queen is dead. Long live the evil queen."
Followed, no doubt, by Regina music.
Yeah.
Or evil queen music.
When Rumple then embraces the fact that he's appearing as Rumple to Belle in the dreams, I found it humorous that he could just flip on the Enchanted Forest Rumple version and and all of that kind of stuff.
Or is that just what Belle was hearing?
Good point. Good point. I've never seen him, and we may never see him be that kind of Rumpelstiltskin when he's in Storybrooke.
That's true.
especially not in Storybrooke attire, just normal Mr. Gold kind of attire.
That would be interesting.
During that beautiful transition with the Beauty and the Beast song going on in the background, things like those torture elements disappeared. There was still a cage in the room, but that was existing already in the actual castle.
Oh, gosh.
Now, Science versus Magic in our forums said of this scene, it seemed like a big retcon of Skin Deep, retroactive continuity. The whole point of Skin Deep was that Belle wasn't terrified of Rumple. She was brave, she was calm, she even talked back to him. The way it was presented in this episode makes it implausible that she would ever have fallen in love with him. They didn't need to mess with Skin Deep as it was a beautiful episode.
Yeah, I mean, she was the one trying to take the curtains down because she thought it would be nicer. And yeah, maybe at one point she was terrified, but...
Now, I would say, remember, this is a dream. Everything that happened in Skin Deep still happened. It's not being retconned.
I wouldn't even call it retcon. It's lackcon.
Yeah.
It's a lack of continuity.
Well,
in terms of what her thoughts and feelings were and how she perceived the world.
but I think it's really Rumple reawakening what's already there by kind of rehearsing this.
Mm-hmm.
And there are movies that play along with that kind of storyline where the person who fell in love gets amnesia for some reason. And so someone else makes them fall in love again by kind of redoing some of the same things. But in here, it's really Rumple just needs to reawaken those thoughts and memories in her, which he does through everything that happens, even though it was fast. And this was a much better version of him. Like, he was completely honest with her. Whereas in Skin Deep, when she mentions that she saw clothing for a child and she asks, what happened to your son? Rumple just says, he died. Here, Rumple says, basically, he left me because I wasn't brave. I was a coward. I did bad things. Rumple is a lot more transparent here and honest about what actually happened in sharing the truth.
I found it kind of an interesting, I don't know if I want to call it a parallel, but that she stopped the kiss, and even though it was just a dream, she wasn't really breaking any curse. It was still kind of happening in the dream, and she's the one who stopped it because she started to remember, rather than the way he stopped it because he realized what was happening and he wanted his power.
Yeah. And now leading up to that kiss, guys, take note of this line.
For you, I would be the best man I can be.
But guys, remember that. Use it. It might work really well
Wow.
for you.
Besides, do we believe him?
He does love Belle.
Yeah, but
And she confirmed that she loves him.
what's his idea of the best man he can be?
Yeah, that's true. Because apparently he still wants to be the Dark One.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the best man he can be is without the Dark One?
Sorry about your luck, Rumple.
And it's kind of strange that Belle would affirm that she does truly love him. And she said, I believe you truly love me. But she's not willing to work it out. She's not willing to change and grow. And it seems like Rumple isn't either. So do they truly love each other if they're not actually willing to change and grow and become better people?
I want to firmly say that he is dangerous. And the way he's been toward her is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I can't remember enough about where they've left this flip-flopping relationship entirely to remember exactly what frame of mind they've put each of them in when last we met.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I had ideas and opinions at every stage, but I don't even remember where they've left them. He still wants to be. He's still saying you have to accept the evil.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's pretty hard-hearted on his part.
And Jacqueline left a note here pointing out that Morpheus, or as the forum has taken to calling him Morpheus.
Oh my
Fetus
goodness.
is like Latin or something for baby, in case you've ever wondered. He doesn't remember the good memories with Belle and Rumple. He doesn't seem to know those. He seems to only be thinking about the bad ones.
What a negative baby.
So it's common in this show for them to really expand our understandings of certain things, like true love's kiss and what is true love, or the heart of the thing you love the most. And we've seen them expand these in many different ways. And here they took us for a new turn. True love's kiss inside of a dream can wake you from the sleeping curse.
Yeah, and I wasn't even mad about it. There was so much else to be confused by. It's poppycock, of course. I thought that once Belle was awake, her summary of the situation was the creepiest thing of all.
Our son, who has no control over his bodily functions yet, gave me a warning, and I'm going to listen to him.
She said he was testing her to see if she'd do right by him. So what if she fell for Rumple's, I guess in his mind, deception? He would keep them both in a sleeping curse rather than wake up his mother and be born to such a woman? Is that what that meant? Like, to me, that's either a sloppy line or really stupid creepy.
He's acting like a baby.
He's acting like his father, in my opinion, in that case, but she's all about it. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I think we'll see.
Jacqueline still thinks that the only way to fix the family is to have Rumple die for Belle and Morpheus, or Baby Mo, thus changing Belle's mind about Rumple. And perhaps changing Morpheus's mind.
I don't like that baby. I've just decided that's an evil baby. She needs to go have that baby in the Enchanted Forest, and then they need to like raise him in a nursery with a protection spell around it and make sure he doesn't put the world into dreams for his testing.
Now, here are some interesting thoughts from members of our community. Nevermore said, when your toddler unreasonably throws a fit about wanting the other parent to go away or try to pin one parent against the other, it is a good parenting technique to remind them that we say nice things to each other and that parents are a team. Because the next thing you know, they'll be pulling the cat's tail and pushing little Johnny into the sand while stealing their bucket. Parenting fail, Belle. Parenting fail.
That's amazing.
And Dark One Deary points something out interesting. Morpheus causing Rumple's death would actually fulfill the prophecy that was never really fulfilled. Let's listen to that prophecy. This is from episode 214, Manhattan.
You will be reunited with your son, and it will come in a most unexpected way.
How?
A boy. A young boy will lead you to him. But beware, Rumpelstiltskin, for that boy is more than he appears. He will lead you to what you seek. But there will be a price. The boy will be your undoing.
Oh, did you have to say that? That last part, did you have to?
Well, here's what the Dark One Deary said. Here, we thought it would be about Henry, but maybe it's his own son. I'm one of the people who still believe the prophecy has not come to fruition yet, so this would make a lot of sense to me. What if this boy, Morpheus, will be Rumple's undoing?
But isn't that boy supposed to lead him to his son?
What if they're talking about different boys? The boy that leads him to his son is Henry or Neil, maybe in some way, strange way. And then that boy could then be referring about a different boy.
Thing is, we already know that they've wrapped up absolutely everything they had ever conceived of in the beginning. So that would be a massive retcon and ruin yet more of the original story.
Maybe. Here's another thought from Rainbow from our forums saying, to be fair, Rumple said in the past that Bay was his happy ending. So if Rumple dies and reunites with Balefire, he would have his happy ending in death.
Huh. Well, that works for everybody. Which is really morbid if you drag it out to its logical conclusion for the show.
Yeah.
Sort of. Maybe, maybe not.
I've seen tweets to us suggesting that it seems a popular opinion is someone important will die this season.
Well, I think that's a persistent theory.
And Rumple, Emma, maybe. Or it could be all kinds of different people. Now, if it's the final season, certainly they could kill whoever they want and not really suffer consequences in a way. At least for the story, they wouldn't suffer consequences. But although Belle and Rumple are still married and still love each other, they are not making a home together. So this is going to be a recurring idea through the season, is seeing Rumple try to win back Belle's trust, which I know is a repeating concept.
Extremely. I'm really hoping, I have hope, that this is a season to try to correct some things. Because they keep making reference to how continuously they've been fighting and going on and running off and doing battles, both in the show and just in, say, the special before the show. They've been referencing that. I think they want to kind of stop and figure these people out that we've been chasing all over the realms. So, and I say that to mean that hopefully if they do hit some recurring themes, they'll actually settle them this time, instead of getting it in the middle somewhere and then throwing people down another portal and mixing it all up again.
And the way to settle it may be something drastic like Rumple's dying.
Yeah, the thing is, he's died before. It does not have any teeth as a plot development anymore.
Well, yeah. I was going to say unless it's a sacrifice, but then again, that's the way he died before.
They did it beautifully already.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have undone it if they wanted plot integrity, but they did. So now I think it needs to be something else.
You know, with one exception, I think Once Upon a Time does beautiful deaths. But then they mess it up by bringing the person back in some way.
Mm-hmm.
With,
I didn't think
with a couple
Hook's
exceptions.
death was beautiful. I thought it was awkward.
I thought it was beautiful. And then the goodbye in the underworld I thought was beautiful too, which is kind of like a death.
Dark, and then there was an ambulance and like a stretcher, and I was like, how does Storybrooke have those things? So that was why I say it wasn't beautiful. It was clinical. I'm like, where'd you come from? It's cool.
But speaking of beautiful and not clinical, our heroes support this podcast
And not
episode
dead.
after episode, and they're not dead for it. Exactly. So if you want to not be dead for supporting this podcast,
Wow.
then
That's not a threat.
it's not. It's a hope, maybe. But we would love to have your support to help the podcast keep running and keep the server up, help us to keep the equipment going and cover other expenses that the podcast has. So for this episode, I want to thank our heroes, Lisa Slack, David Newland, Amy Catalier, DJ Firewolf, and Jim, let me try that one again. And Jimbabwe K88, plus all of our 28 heroes on Patreon. Thank you very much for your support of the podcast. We couldn't do this without you. Your support, whether it's $1 per month or $10 or $20 or $100, whatever level you're able to give, it really helps the podcast. Thank you very much. Every dollar matters. If you want to become a hero to the podcast, then please visit oncepodcast.com/hero. And I promise you, we will not visit you as a creepy baby in your dreams if you support us at oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support. Flipping back now to what's going on in Storybrooke. In our opening scene here, I want to get on a little soapbox, okay?
Okay.
Because, I say these things sometimes. Hook, Emma, get married. If you're supposed to be heroes, live with a higher moral standard that people can actually look up to. When Emma and Neil fornicated, you could say that Emma was naive and not yet a hero, though that doesn't make her any less responsible for her choices. Now Emma is called the savior, and she's the bringer of happy endings, the product of true love, the bearer of light magic, the one to begin the final battle. And she neither has the strength to control her own sexual urge, nor the honor to save sex for the covenant of marriage. I understand that the writers are trying to make real and relatable heroes. But what happened to inspiring better choices, to inspiring something that is beyond the norm, above the norm, something that's even more respectable? And by the way, what's unreal or unrelatable about someone mature enough to have self-control, patience, and commitment? I know I've said much more controversial things in this podcast before. And I think that this is an issue that is respected even by people who don't choose such morality. They can still respect the people who do choose to save sex for marriage. And to sum it up, here's my thought. Hook or Emma, if you want it, put a ring on it. Okay, end of soapbox. And I know you may not agree with that. You probably don't agree with many other things. Let me say that differently because it sounds like I'm talking to you, Jeremy.
Right.
So, yeah, end of soapbox. When everyone finds Hyde there in the middle, when everyone, along with all of the extras who are there just to be extras for some reason, I guess, they see the dirigible and everything coming into town. Hyde said that Rumple gave Storybrooke to him. And remember in that little, what you called a video game sort of sequence with Rumple, it's...
Oh, you mean when he was talking like this?
Yeah. Rumple said, you have the keys to Storybrooke. So what does that mean? The keys to Storybrooke?
Well, Daniel, it means that if you live somewhere, you can do what you want. So, if you will get me gift certificates to my favorite coffee shop, I will give you Cincinnati.
But you don't actually have...
Maybe I should set my price a little higher. But the point is, I can give you Cincinnati.
But you actually can't. But could Rumple give Storybrooke?
In what way did Storybrooke belong to Rumpelstiltskin? That would enable him to give it to somebody else. And I think that's my point.
Well, he kind of created the dark curse.
Well, yes. No.
He put together the ingredients for it.
At one point.
Yes.
And then that was completely destroyed.
And then left someone else to cast the curse. So Storybrooke...
Someone else cast it, and then it was broken and reversed, and someone else cast it again.
Well, maybe it's like Storybrooke was essentially created with that first curse, and then everything else is just returning Storybrooke.
Got from somewhere else, right? Have we?
Yeah,
I can't even remember.
The Chernobog was guarding the dark curse.
But we still technically don't know who wrote it.
Right. Our theories are good theories about who wrote the curse and the nature of the curse from season 5 proved to be wrong, at least what we've seen so far. But anyway.
He didn't occupy the mayor's office either.
I think this keys to Storybrooke thing might be an indication that Rumple kind of has the ability to come and go as he pleases in Storybrooke. Like he could from any other realm enter Storybrooke.
We've never seen any indication of that.
Well, we've seen him open a portal from the underworld to Storybrooke. He needed certain things for it, sure.
Like his blood.
Yeah. And
maybe they're blood brothers.
somehow Hyde came to Storybrooke.
Along with a giant dirigible that wasn't quite as giant as the last time we saw it.
Yeah.
Didn't it have the cell last time?
Well, it could have been a different dirigible. There are several other dirigibles in the Land of Untold Stories.
It brought all those people here, and yet Emma pokes her head in and goes, "No one here! It's tiny!"
Now, going back to the thought of Rumple's ownership of Storybrooke, when Hyde says that Rumple gave Storybrooke to him, they cut to show Regina, and the look on her face, to me, almost looks like she realizes, yeah, that's a thing. That can actually happen.
Well, that's Regina's role some of the time in this show, is to enter a scene and tell us, hey guys, that's totally a thing. You didn't know it, but I know it intrinsically.
What do you think makes Hyde so invincible?
You mean what makes him more powerful than any other magical or non-magical thing at which Emma and Regina have ever directed their magic?
Yes.
I'd say not a darn thing, unless he's not real.
He is the product of science, not of magic.
He's a thing? Is he alive?
Well, Emma was the product of true love, so
He
we don't call
needs
her a thing.
to see an ophthalmologist. Like now.
Hyde said something I think sets up what will be a recurring theme in every episode for this season, or at least this idea of the story arc we're getting.
Do be careful. Nothing more dangerous than an untold story. And the people who don't want them told.
So I think with Once Upon a Time Season 6, we're going to get basically the untold story of the week and the danger that comes along with that, as these stories apparently are going to play out when they haven't been able to before.
I think it's just going to be all of them gathered in the library weeping because their stories have, in fact, been told.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. What is an untold story?
Yep.
Is this the writers giving themselves permission to write all kinds of their own fairy tales or mash things together or complete fairy tale stories?
Could be interesting. They don't need permission for that. Unlike Rumple giving the town away. He needs permission for that. My favorite part about this scene was when they did the magicking. Emma told Regina that evil did not make her strong. Thank you. That's all I wanted for like 2 seasons when that seemed to be in question. That's all I wanted anyone to say. Thank you.
Nice. Do you think Hyde brought these people by invitation? Or do you think...
Is that all it takes to realm jump now? You just send an invitation?
Or do you think that he forced them to come because they seem scared of him?
Well, again, maybe I should rewatch the finale yet again. I don't remember anything about the Land of Untold Stories being an indication that those people specifically did not want their stories told. But now that's the theme.
They went to the Land of Untold Stories to escape their stories in some way.
Sure. Maybe.
So they don't want their stories told. They don't want their stories played out. Kind of, I think it seems consistent with what we saw at the end of the last season.
They seem scared, so I'd say they were forced.
Yeah.
Probably. Like it crashed. Why did it crash, guys? Why? How did it get there? Why did it crash? Don't know. Probably not even a relevant question because I hadn't even thought to ask why it crashed until just now. They're warping my brain. They're making me not ask things. But now they're all hiding in the woods, waiting to be cast. I mean, waiting to go to Granny's.
Now, to your comment earlier about Jekyll not really being a real person, Hudgebow suggested this. Maybe because they are split, magic doesn't work on Hyde. Maybe he isn't a real person somehow, like in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, how Jekyll had to kill himself to stop Hyde. Maybe the only way you can hurt Hyde is by using magic on Jekyll. they have to still be connected. Remember, they both, and this is a nice low attention to detail, they both still have the cut on their face that once upon a time, timeline-wise, happened like yesterday kind of thing, or earlier in the day.
Oh gosh, that gives me a whole new theory on later in the season.
What's that?
Well, first of all, great minds, Hudgebao, great minds. But if that's true, guess what the key to defeating the evil queen might be?
Killing Regina?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, a lot of people don't like you right now.
I just thought of it. That's not what I want. That's a logical conclusion.
Send your hate mail to...
No. If you have hate mail to send, you need to split yourself or something.
Yeah, and then make the good side of you send us the hate mail, because then the good side of you would send a very nice piece of hate mail.
You got to split the hater from the nice person.
When Regina came home to the baby mess there,
The baby mess.
that's probably what my house is going to look like after Christmas this year, when our firstborn will arrive and we'll get to meet our son or daughter. We don't know, by the way. In case you've been wondering, do we know if it's a boy or girl? We don't know.
If you want to find out, you could just throw some sand at Jenny and see if you guys have an interesting dream.
That might work.
It might need to be special sand. I don't know. I don't know how this works.
When they catch Hyde, something interesting to note is what does work on Hyde, since we know magic doesn't seem to work. Technology does work on Hyde. Hyde was created.
He's a thing.
Yeah, he was created with technology. He can be defeated with technology. And the thing that Emma was holding, guess what? It's basically a long distance taser.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that the dirigible used the quote same technology, and you can just sort of fashion the wreckage into this weapon.
Steam. That's probably what it is.
Yes.
And punks.
You punk. Look at you and your steam. Good job. He's handy. I guess that's also where he made the specially made handcuffs.
Yeah. Wonder if that's a combination of the Peter Pan cuff and the technology from the dirigible. It's derived from the dirigible. It's a derivable. That's when you derive something from a dirigible. And I'm just going to have that cut out. Even just my comment, that can just be removed. Doesn't help the discussion.
Those handcuffs must really be something, because he can't get out of them, even though he could totally resist that oh so powerful magic epoxy that Emma and Regina have used so many times. But I don't know how. They're just metal.
It's like oil and water, or like other aspects of physics where things don't combine or don't conduct or something like that. I don't know.
And I really think we're only supposed to know that they are specially made.
Yeah.
They should,
with love.
They should specially make a lot more things. They'd have a better life.
And speaking of a better life, Dr. Hopper is back to make our lives better, to see him in Once Upon a Time, along with Pongo, and to try and help Emma's life be a little bit better with the crash site counseling. Great to see him. And just the way that he talks, again, I'm not sure if I've ever said this before, but Raphael Sbarge, perfect for this role, because the way he talks, he's smiling the whole time and encouraging, and he plays the part perfectly. He's the perfect voice, the perfect face for the part of Archie Hopper.
Soothing.
Yeah.
Yes. And he confirmed, you've been fighting bad guys for years without a break.
The story of her life. Literally, since her life is a story. Moving on.
This is the best thing about this season so far. I mean, we're one episode in, but that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is that I have said every year, give him a break. Give him a break. And I don't know if this is really a break, because there's like all this weird stuff happening in Storybrooke, but it's kind of a break. I think that's the point of it.
When Emma goes to see Hyde, she almost seems to be offering him a break. But he said that he brought someone who can help her. And the grammar in that sentence is not incorrect or anything like that. But it does leave me asking a question. Did he bring the Oracle, or the woman who claims to have been formerly known as an Oracle, did he bring that person because he anticipated Emma's problem? Or is it that he brought her because he had need of her in some other way and he realizes, oh, hey, guess what? Someone I brought with me just so happens to be someone you need to talk to.
Maybe she's a con artist who specializes in entering a story and finding the savior character and manipulating them into thinking they're going to die.
Well, there could be some conning going on, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
You think that's her name? Conning?
Or Connie.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to sound like Connie. Are we keeping people officially when we really want to keep them somewhere? Are we keeping them in the psych ward now instead of the cell in the sheriff's office? Did we decide that that was just not secure enough? Or is this like solitary? We don't want a guy who likes to talk that much in the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Is that because they don't use that cell anymore? They just take people to the basement of the hospital, which is almost a violation of rights in some way.
It's Forgotten Character Island in a box.
I like it.
Yeah. You can carry it with you.
They should put him in Pandora's box now, except maybe he's not magical enough.
Well, they may have to do that, or maybe they won't be able to. But that's a very good point now that there's vacancy once more in Pandora's box.
They make a good hotel name.
I don't know about that.
Maybe not.
I wouldn't be around when everyone wakes up.
Jafar's assistant. Is that Freudian?
When this emotional scene with Emma, no, not Emma. When Regina goes to the mayor's office, it does create this, yes, emotional scene. And I'll tell you, that kind of thing, the place where something extremely emotional happened is extremely powerful. I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've had something in my life that at some point I will tell more of the story, not here in this podcast, but in a different podcast. But there was a particular location deeply associated with something that became extremely painful. And I could not pass by that location without just feeling a crushing pain on me. And there was actually a time in my life when I went into that location to stand in there and say, this no longer has control over me. I will no longer be defeated, affected by this. I've given it over to God. This no longer will take me down. I've moved on. I've recovered. I've healed. This is no longer that place of pain for me. Mm-hmm. And seeing that in Regina too, and even a little bit in Zelina, because Zelina lost someone there too that she loved, albeit it was basically the devil. I know, not technically, so don't point that out, but it's a very real thing. And it seems like she's trying to do that thing to go back to embrace the pain and deal with it and try to move on. Mm-hmm. I think as much as we've been proponents of character development and have been saying we really want more character development, I think Regina is the most well-developed character in the series.
Yeah, I'd say so, because they have literally developed her. They've had her go through various changes, and there hasn't been an abnormal plot-driven amount of back and forth. She's taken steps back like everyone does, but it hasn't been just this constant role reversal. She's moved sort of consistently forward to the point where she now actually freely calls these people her friends. You know, and it was gradual and slow. It wasn't sudden like her sisterhood with Zelina. You know, a one episode, hey, here are your memories back. You guys were friends when you were young, so now you're best friend sisters instead of worst enemies. You know, and still here, that's actually, That's the thing. I liked the scene and then I didn't like it. The whole I blame you thing, I didn't understand. Does that feel consistent with Regina's character development? Or like does that just expose the weakness of their newfound sisterhood? Or was that more plot driven?
I kind of think it's all of those.
Yeah.
Now, Zelina can certainly blame Regina in some way because, and someone sent us this feedback. I can't find who it was right now, but someone did point out that Regina was the one who, in season 5, told Zelina, yes, go to Hades. Love could change him.
Yeah.
And Zelina was the first one, though, to suggest that, saying, I can change him. Love can change him. And Regina was like, no, no, no. And it seemed like Zelina was about to believe that. And then Regina said, maybe love can change him. So everybody's to blame, really, or no one to blame. Hades is the clear villain. Hades is the one who actually committed the crime.
Yeah.
So people genuinely tried for good reasons, doing perhaps even the right thing for the right reasons, and it didn't work. So that doesn't mean they're to blame for the failure.
Yeah. Yep. I can see some of that stuff getting mixed up, but the way that all went down, just breaking kind of their relationship just seemed sudden and maybe over the top.
Yeah. But I think Zelina spoke for all of us when we saw this first episode of the season.
I thought it would take weeks and weeks of battles and twists and turns, and there you go doing it, day one.
Yep.
That's funny.
Although we really have not seen the last of this battle with Hyde, and it's going to continue. You know it will.
We haven't, but I am relieved that he's not just sitting somewhere in control. Let's go figure out how he's keeping everyone in the town. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Not the same old, same old.
Yeah.
He finds his son somewhere in Storybrooke and then plots with him to try and overtake Storybrooke secretly, like Cora and Regina did, or any of those other repeating things.
Because then it wouldn't be a break. They act like they've been in other realms every moment, but they haven't. The whole Frozen thing, well, maybe not all, but most of it took place in Storybrooke, as I recall, and that wasn't a break for them because they were still doing the same thing. So, yeah, they did a little bit of run, but now they actually can have their breather.
And speaking of running, the people running away in the forest and Snow and David finding them in their little trap that they left.
Trap? Oh, the net, yes. How they almost got caught in a net. Yeah, what was the amateur's comment? I mean, literally, Snow has gotten caught in one of those. Was she an amateur at the time, I guess?
The rope was clearly visible.
Oh, I see.
Maybe not clear if you don't have a big screen or if you're not watching in high definition, but the rope is definitely there. It's not covered or anything. And it's not like you see this long line of leaves even covering an obvious trap. The rope is just right there. So that's why it's amateurs. They didn't hide the rope. It would have been cute if Snow and Charming were caught in a net together. Or maybe like if Charming was caught in the net and Snow is the one who set the net trap for him.
Because if they were both in it, we'd have to actually meet some of the faceless people with torches. And, we're totally not paying them for this episode. So not yet. But we'll meet at Granny's because Snow will be there.
And that's where everyone goes to have
but
food.
Snow in particular, apparently, that I don't think she has been home in a while. I think that she just stays at Granny's.
When Emma and Hook are out in the woods looking around, she again lies to him.
I am seething over this.
And Hook knows she's lying to him. You can tell it in his tone, and he does say you can lie to everyone, but you can't lie to me. And that's not like a permission kind of thing. That's basically it doesn't work on me kind of thing. He knows when she's lying, and right here, he knows that she's lying.
It just... We and they have been over this so many times, there's just nothing left to say. I don't get it. Talk about character development. They know better. She even said, well, later, I suppose, she literally promised him that she was telling him everything when she lied to him for at least the second time in this episode later on. I don't get it.
And
they're beyond help.
There was the whole Hook being the dark one and her lying to him and keeping secrets. Now, that was to protect him. But this lie, she's protecting herself. She's not protecting him. She's not protecting anyone else. She's protecting herself, her own, maybe her pride, her position.
Well, she may think that she's protecting them from what? Worry? Ugh. Whatever. I don't see a reason to lie. I don't see one.
So she follows the the red bird, and she finds this girl.
Maybe it can realm jump.
It's the same girl from the opening scene. We talked about her a lot already. There are some things. This girl, I think it's more the way the actress. There are some things that I think are more the way the actress says the lines than the actual lines she's given. But she tends to not give much of a space with the commas that precede someone's name.
Yeah.
Now, here's a little grammar tip for you. Almost whenever you're using a person's name in a sentence, when you're addressing that person, you use a comma around their name. Commas kind of around their name. Like, Jeremy, comma, it's nice to see you. Or, hi, comma, Jeremy. Now, you wouldn't use a comma if you're saying, give this to Jeremy. But if I'm saying, Jeremy, comma, give this to Bob. So she says, I see you met my pet, Emma.
Yeah.
Now, there could be actually 3 ways to interpret that sentence. I see you met my pet, Emma.
And it made me laugh both times. And I'm just like, if you're the writer, the actress, the director, like the guy that gets the snacks and happens to be on set, why don't you suggest, hey, why don't we have her say, Emma, I see you met my pet.
Yeah. And she does the same thing on a line later that just makes me think it's the way the actress is performing the line. There is a comma in there. So kids and adults, put that comma before the name when you're addressing someone or after the name when you're addressing someone. Nice little grammar rule. You've learned all kinds of grammar principles from this podcast. I mean, we should probably be a better writer by now from this podcast.
And even if you're a director, when you're watching a show and there's a word that people are not pronouncing consistently, make them pronounce it consistently. And that's just my PSA to directors everywhere.
So while Emma is talking to the Oracle, and I'm skipping down to my notes the next time, Emma talks more to an Oracle and Vision, because this just ties together. It's basically the same thing. So let me do this differently. I want to bring up some of those other theories about the Oracle. As Jacqueline pointed out, the red bird is Iago. The little girl, maybe not who she claims to be. Think about these couple things. Why was an oracle with Aladdin in the first place? Or was it really an oracle back then? Maybe, maybe not. When she helps Emma see the vision, she conjures a staff out of nowhere. So she has magical powers. We saw a seer in the episode Manhattan 214. That seer had no magical powers other than a really creepy voice, really weird hands and eyes, both in the same thing, and the ability to see the future. But she couldn't conjure something.
Right.
Now, what did the Oracle, I'll just call her that for now, what did she conjure? It's a staff with a bird on it, and the bird's eyes glow in order to help Emma see this vision of the future. So here are some of the theories. Alina said, my theory is that the Oracle is actually Jafar in disguise. The red bird looking far too similar to Iago from Aladdin. The visions may be a trick that cause Emma to second guess herself, leading her to being more vulnerable. Let me say that again. The visions may be a trick that causes Emma to second guess herself, leading to her being more vulnerable to the villain from Agrabah, who is actually under the hood in which Aladdin comes into the picture. Wait. Let me try this again.
It's all about the commas.
Yeah. Use your commas, people. Alina's usually pretty good, though, with commas and periods, too. The visions may be a trick that causes Emma to second guess herself, leading to her being more vulnerable to the villain of Agrabah, who is actually under the hood, in which Aladdin comes into the picture to help Emma. Sorry, I'm not getting it.
Me either.
So let me let me just do this feedback over again. Yeah, that's my edit point. Most people clap or leave silence. I go
Clap and spit.
Oh, the DNA that must be on this microphone.
Wow.
So here's Alina's theory. She said, the oracle is actually Jafar in disguise, the red bird looking far too similar from Iago from Aladdin. The visions may be a trick that causes Emma to second guess herself, leading to her being more vulnerable to the villain from Agrabah. So there's one theory, that Jafar is actually the oracle. Let me say that again. So that's one idea, is that the oracle is actually Jafar in disguise.
Interesting.
And here's something else that adds to that. Matthew Paul pointed out the oracle had an animal staff with glowy eyes.
Glowy eyes.
From this very episode, we saw that at the beginning of the episode, Jafar had a staff with a snake on it, and the snake had glowy eyes.
Yeah.
From the spin-off series Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, we know the history of that staff, and that it's actually a person, and that the staff also has glowy eyes. So Matthew said the oracle had an animal staff with glowy eyes, just like Jafar's snake staff. I'm guessing that he did the same thing like he did to Amara and turned the real oracle into a staff. So when we see the oracle in Storybrooke today, that's Jafar, and the staff is the oracle.
Huh.
Now here's Jessica's theory. She said, what do you want to comment on that before I go on?
No, I'm just trying to figure out what the next piece of the succession would be. And when we see Jafar, it's actually the genie. No.
Here's another theory. This is from Jessica. She said, so I was thinking about Aladdin and the Savior and Emma's role. My prediction is Aladdin escaped to the land of untold stories to escape his Savior premonition. Wait a minute. Yeah, this is what I wanted to read. Sorry about that. Here's another theory from Jessica saying, so I was thinking about Aladdin and the Savior and Emma's role. My prediction is Aladdin escaped to the land of untold stories to escape his Savior premonition to avoid that fate. You know, the whole Savior shakes things. I believe that what Emma saw is going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy if she isn't careful. I see this oracle as evil-ish, because she is trying to send Emma and maybe even Aladdin down a certain path. However, in Emma, she even said, no one decides my fate but me. And remember the line back from season 1, everyone is going to try and tell you who you are, and you have to say, no, this is who I am. Jessica continues, I believe Aladdin was a savior who ran from his problems and could make Emma run scared. That is my prediction for the season based off one episode.
Interesting. I was going to say it would make him kind of a coward if he did that, but
yeah,
if that's maybe the point, then
And it could be the point.
He's not finished.
I think we will see Aladdin probably in Storybrooke at some point here. Looking at this a different way. No, the wrong segue.
Wrong lever. Why do we even have that segue?
Now, how about Emma's vision? I watched this over and over and over in slow motion and like stop motion. I stopped it frame by frame and looked at certain details. Because the reason why I want to obsess over it like that is because the last time I didn't do that, I could have picked up on that big detail that Hook was the Dark One in season 5, because it was actually there. The clues were there in that one particular scene. Yeah. We could see Hook in the background when Merlin said in that voicemail, the Dark One is here. It was Hook in the background. We could have seen that if I'd have obsessed over those details, but I didn't, and we missed that until it was too late. So I wanted to look more closely at this.
You make it sound like you got us.
You did. In this thing, now I know I could be over-analyzing this, so I know take this with a grain of salt and sugar and whatever else you want to take with possibly bad theories.
Stir it once an hour until set.
In this vision, the person Emma is battling is a guy. I can tell by the feet, the shoes, the general body shape, it's a guy.
/ extreme height.
Now, that could be just a stunt person that happens to be a guy, and this is really supposed to be a girl, but we don't know. He's wearing gloves. He's wearing the whole hood. You can't tell at all just from a glance. I'm looking at these finer details, like the shape of the shoes, to see, are those guy shoes or are these girl shoes?
Okay, so Mr. Finer Details, tell me, did this villain go raid the costume closet and pull out one of the plentiful Dark One cloaks? Or is this actually perceivably different?
That's tough. It looks like a Dark One cloak.
Because I don't want to throw any shade on Eddie Castro, but it definitely looked like it was reused from the Dark One days.
Doesn't quite look as ornate as the Dark One cloaks. And it's not all that hard to make a generic black cloak.
Well, that's true.
Now, here are some other things of interest, though. During the battle, when he disarms Emma, he poofs the sword away with red smoke. Yep. Our friend Jeff Roney, who unfortunately isn't podcasting about Once Upon a Time anymore, at least for the time being, but I still keep in touch with Jeff Roney because we are actual friends. We go back a long time. But he had this pet theory for years about the color of smoke being tied to certain people. And we do see that that's mostly true. Like Zelina, green smoke all the time. Emma, when we've seen Emma poof to places, it's been white smoke.
Yeah.
Regina, typically purple smoke, though there have been a couple times it's been different. Rumple, either we don't see him poof,
right,
or we have seen him poof with red smoke. This sword was poofed away with red smoke.
Interesting. Think he's going to go full Dark One?
Maybe. But what doesn't quite fit with that is the way this person was fighting Emma. They were very active. They were doing all kinds of spinning moves, which look really cool, even though I am a black belt in karate and I know certain techniques and things. And a spinning move can be really powerful. But I was looking at this fight scene and realizing a particular spinning move just wasn't necessary. Now, I am going to, hold on. I'm going to go plug that light in because the batteries just died.
Oh. Like, what happened? So this is nice. Baby Mo is red smoke. He poofed the... What? He poofed the hourglass with red smoke? Ah! Tip to all ye. Don't look directly at the LED panel when LED panel is being plugged in. Bad idea.
Now, who else has used red smoke? I haven't been able to confirm this, but I think I remember Peter Pan maybe using red smoke.
I thought Pan was all about the green everything.
And I could be wrong. But
You
there's
most certainly
someone
could
else we've seen use red smoke
Enlighten
in this
us.
episode.
Enlighten us.
Baby Mo
Baby Mo.
used red smoke when he poofed the hourglass and conjured it up.
I will say this again.
So maybe red smoke runs in the family. It's like
Because-
blood magic.
True. I think I said this perhaps already. Baby Mo was cast too specifically, I guess. As in, I feel like they put some effort into his casting, and if Belle is now out of the sleeping curse, he was only present for one episode unless there are other tricks afoot. Like, he's not who he said he is. They're gonna do the rapid aging thing. Something.
Now, there have been other characters who have used red smoke. Dark Hook used red smoke. I believe Korra might have used red smoke as well.
Maybe they just like it.
So red smoke isn't necessarily an indicator. Also, the dragon.
Maybe Evil Queen will.
So
Being separate.
a lot of people have used red smoke, and smoke is only available in so many colors, apparently.
Although, can you imagine Evil Queen doing spinning moves?
No, and can you imagine Rumple doing spinning moves? That's why I
Yeah.
bring that up.
I can.
I can't.
He usually just appears where he wants to be.
He appears where he wants to be, and he's very confident in his fighting like that when it's a physical fight. He basically stands still. He doesn't do fancy fight moves and stuff.
True.
He doesn't really need to. He's a dark one who can just poof himself into places. He can take a sword to the face or to the body somehow and just recover from it because he's the dark one. So I don't think that's necessarily Rumple. The idea I'm thinking is that this is somehow baby Morpheus. How? I don't know. That's onion rings.
Or it was Morpheus pretending to be Baby Mo, pretending to be Morpheus.
Holding a staff that's actually Jafar.
Yes. And how he woke Belle up, who's to say? Questions are pointless anyway, so it could happen.
Now, the Oracle also said some other things to Emma. She said, you can change the path, but not the destination. And Oracle very clearly said, on the day that you saw, in the battle that you saw, you will die.
That avoids all other theories like, oh, on the day but not in the battle, like maybe she'll win the battle and then she'll still die, or maybe that battle will just happen 20 years later because she said you could alter the path. But no. And I take the day you saw to mean, well, she saw her family and they hadn't aged, so that day has to be soon.
And Henry was there, and it's difficult to hide age with a growing teenage boy like that.
Yes, although he did hide his face.
Kind of.
Kind of, but not the first time he ran up.
So they are amazingly specific with that line, which makes me think either it's true or it's completely false. The other thought is...
Well, those are a couple good options.
Yeah. The other thought is, remember who's saying that? It's the Oracle, which may not be who they're claiming to be. If it's Jafar, what if Jafar is setting them up for this? And what if that figure is actually Jafar? I could see Jafar being the one to try to defeat Emma and put her in a staff so he can make Emma's eyes glow red at people.
This is good. This is one of those episodes where I'm starting to see that there are more layers to what we watched than what I thought was present.
Now, David sent us this theory on Twitter saying Emma doesn't die in that battle, but she does lose her savior powers. And we'll have to get them back somehow in season 7.
Now, see, that would be the ultimate failure if this all is not a deception, but by the time we get there, they are going, well, die means something else, and battle means something else, and vision, blah, blah, blah. Everything's been redefined. That would be not a success in my mind. So I hope that kind of a theory is not the correct answer.
Moda Boutique suggested this possible solution to the Savior shakes, saying, in season 3, Zelena cursed Hook's lips to take away Emma's powers. If they get Zelena to cast the same spell to remove Emma's powers, she might therefore become immune to the mysterious metal, and her hands just might not shake anymore. If Adam and Eddie are focusing on the actual, quote, rules, unquote, that apply to a savior, then what I theorized probably doesn't work.
Mysterious metal?
I assume that's talking about the sword that ends up stabbing her.
It all began when she touched a piece of the dirigible, didn't it?
When someone threw it and it hit against other metal.
She just
I think it
heard
was, merely the sound of it. It seems that certain things like that are what spark the visions, not the tremors. I do realize, though, these Savior shakes didn't start until this episode. And what else has been happening in this episode? All of these people have come from the land of untold stories. One of them possibly Jafar.
This break is not such a break.
Jafar was around when Aladdin was shaking. I wonder if there's someone that has this ability on saviors. They're like the anti-savior.
Oh, gosh.
Because Jafar did say... No, it wasn't Jafar. Because Hyde did say, essentially, for every savior, there's a villain. Or in other words, an anti-savior. And now, Hyde did say that the villain defeats the savior, which kind of seems like it makes the savior not actually the savior in that sense.
Yeah, he said that it's always someone that takes them down.
Yeah.
How does he know?
He's seen it before. Somehow.
But always? That's a big word, Mr. Hyde.
Well, maybe he's seen a lot of saviors flee from their stories and come to the land of untold stories. And he hears of that. And that's how he knows how it always turns out.
Weird. Interesting. I don't know how to feel about that idea. Or him.
Meanwhile, Regina tries that little locator spell to try to find, not Robin, but to find the feather.
Which, why?
Because she wanted it. It was
Even Henry knows how that locator spell works.
Yeah.
Why would she try it? That doesn't make any sense.
Now, I thought, nice job, Henry, restoring faith and hope. And basically saying, well, maybe he's not obliterated. Kitsis and Horowitz hinted to this idea in, I think it was Comic-Con or some panel or somewhere. They hinted to the idea that
they had heard the complaints of literally every viewer of the show?
No, that Hades may not necessarily be telling the truth or know the truth about what the crystal can do.
Yes.
So what Henry is doing here is not only restoring faith and hope to Regina, but I think also kind of being that little bandage to restore faith and hope to the viewers to say, Robin, as a hero, as the love of Regina's life, her soulmate, all of this, he's not actually obliterated. He is at peace.
He's just dead, guys.
Yeah.
It's actually fine.
So all we need to do is go to the underworld or talk to a Greek mythological god and have them recognize what a hero Robin is and bring him back.
They actually got the fans to a point where we're relieved to hear that someone is just dead. Good job. That's hope. I think it's total retcon, and I'm totally fine with it because it was a huge mistake. So, yes, it does help restore hope. Maybe not in what you're actually hearing in the moment that you're watching an episode, but in the overall plot, it restores hope.
Now, here's the disappointing counter to that from Jacqueline. She said, why would Hades lie? This weapon is from the gods, intended to destroy gods, but because of intense fan backlash, we're expected to believe that Robin didn't really get obliterated. And what does that say about Zeus if he didn't bring back Robin after he made the ultimate sacrifice? There's a lot of fan placation. Thank you. There's a lot of fan placation going on in this scene, and while it might be nice or have good intention, it doesn't hold up with the narrative of the past season. So there's your opposing perspective.
Like I said, retcon, but if ever one was needed, that was it.
After Emma returns to hide, and then after she... No, I'll try this again. After Emma finishes her conversation with Hyde, then she goes to Granny's, finds Hook there drinking away his sorrows. Oh, my girl lies to me and I don't know what to do. I found it funny that when he gave one of those 2 drinks to Emma, he gave the one to her that was the one he had already been drinking from and was therefore already half drunk from the glass.
Was he already half drunk? That's the question.
Yeah, that's also a good question.
Which is where she promised him that everything was just stress and everything was fine. Yeah, woman, it wasn't bad enough that like your word is literally not good.
I promise you, I'm not lying. I'm actually lying right now. Yeah.
And what more? How is there still hope? We're talking a lot about hope. I see Emma lying to Hook yet again. Emma lying to anyone in the town as a pretty hopeless thing. It's just sad.
Yeah. And their relationship can recover, certainly. And I do want their relationship to recover. I do want them to get married, guys. Come on, like my rant earlier. But they've got some serious issues to work through with this habit Emma has of lying to the people she loves.
She needs to go to Well-Intentioned Liars Anonymous or something.
She needs to take a lesson from Regina and Snow, the more mature, more developed Regina and Snow, because they have this great conversation at the town hall there on the bench. And funny in it, I was an awful stepmother.
I know. I find that to be such an incredible understatement. An awful stepmother is neglectful and perhaps hateful. This one, I mean, had an army trying to kill her stepdaughter. That goes beyond awful. But this was still a great talk.
Mm-hmm. And Regina said Robin is at peace, or that's what she's choosing to believe in. I think that doesn't justify his death. But it does, I think, make us, but I think it does make us want to feel better, at least, about his death, to know that he's at peace.
Yeah. Yeah, to do one of the most hopeless things you've ever heard of in any story anywhere on a show that touts hope as its main point was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And Regina,
away.
And Regina said that she's choosing to believe that this story will have a better ending than her last. I wonder, could that same hope and that same choosing to believe also apply to Emma?
No. I'm just kidding, guys. That whole thing that she said about my life was never just one story, it was many stories. I think that's a really hopeful concept for people, because the story you're in right now might not be good, but that doesn't mean it's the only story that's ever going to happen in your life.
Yeah, it's basically that Regina is saying all of my life has been a series of doors in my face. had to bring it back. I just can't let it go.
That was cold.
Speaking of cold, Evil Queen goes to visit Zelina, which I can understand Evil Queen being able to get into Storybrooke because she's part of Emma. So, okay, fine.
She's
I'm fine
part
with
of
that.
Emma.
Let me say that again. I can understand Evil Queen being able to find and re-enter Storybrooke because Evil Queen was part of Regina. So she's from this area. She can see it. She can re-enter it. I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I thought it's loads of fun to see the Evil Queen back again, along with her evil laugh and the way she talks and those looks she gives, the like overly evil queen kind of looks.
It is fun, but it can't. They're gonna have to be so careful with it because it can't just be fun for the sake of fun. It needs to make a show that works. But I mean, I think it's probably going to turn out better than I had imagined. But there again, I still have questions about the validity of Evil Queen existing as a living being.
We've questioned many things before as major plot points, like the Frozen thing. We said, this seems like it'll be kind of stupid.
Yeah,
it
but
turned out pretty good.
I loved that, honestly. I know a lot of people didn't, but for what it was, I enjoyed Frozen for what it was, and I felt like that was almost a sequel to Frozen, and it was good Once Upon a Time too. Mm-hmm. So what was to hate? I liked it.
Yeah, and the Hades and Underworld thing
turned out better than we would have expected, but it, was a weird thing that had moments.
This whole splitting Evil Queen from Regina thing could turn out much better than we expect. Certainly, it's set us up for a fun story. In our initial reactions, we were talking about, well, is Zelina then going to go on the side of the Evil Queen? Because Zelina did say to Regina earlier in this episode, you ripped out she said, you ripped out the only part of you that was like me.
The part of you that was most like me.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're just admitting still somehow, even as you're kind of laughing and smiling about your baby and the mess, that you're basically this wicked woman, I guess if that's what you want to embrace, then yeah, but definitely let's develop Zelina, because dang.
But in these last few scenes, last few camera switches, and the last shots you see, Zelina's look does not look like, yay, this is the part of Regina that's most like me. We're going to be buddies and best friends forever, and we're going to be sisters finally. The look on Zelina's face was more like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
This is not actually what I wanted. I do not like this. I am not okay with this.
So maybe she'll be a double agent. Maybe she'll go along with it and be the inside woman.
Perhaps.
So we'll think that she's chosen Evil Queen, but really she's doing it for Regina.
I could see that.
Which would be nice because otherwise, even more so, the scene in the mayor's office was just to bring this about.
Oh, that was the end of your sentence.
It is now.
Okay. The thumbs up I gave was not to say, cut your sentence off right now.
But you gave it, and I started thinking, I was like, actually, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. And I feel like there might have been a perceivable period there, a comma that could flex to be a period. So I stopped. I stopped talking. My pet Emma.
Hashtag pet Emma. I've got to stop talking in hashtags. I'm becoming a millennial.
You're becoming a now person. Whether it's said ironically or seriously, everybody's doing it.
Mm.
As long as you limit yourself to one.
So this concludes our discussion of this episode, The Savior. The spoilers that you might hear in a little bit from Hunter and Jacqueline We'll probably prove a lot of what we said wrong, or maybe prove some of what we said right. But nonetheless, stick around for those spoilers if you want to hear them after the music. And there are some great ones in there that I think that you will enjoy. I don't know what they are, but I just know that Hunter and Jacqueline always have this amazing ability to find some great spoilers and share great insights on them. Thank you very much for sending the feedback that we were able to use in this episode. If you are a person who enjoys reading these theories and sorting them out and filtering good theories from bad theories, please email feedback@oncepodcast.com, because Corbin has done a great job for us at sorting theories. We've had others in the past too, like Slurpees 108, help sort theories, and some others. But they're unavailable now to continue helping us sort these emails. If you would like to support the podcast in that way and volunteer a little bit of time, it doesn't take all that much time, but it's primarily on a Wednesday afternoon to sort these things, put them in our notes and such. Please email us, feedback@oncepodcast.com, and we can see how it might work out. But we do appreciate the feedback that you give us, and keep our feedback information handy. It's on the website at oncepodcast.com, and the show notes for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode or want to continue the conversation in the comments, go to oncepodcast.com/258. That's also where you can go to share this episode on Twitter, Facebook, all of those places like that. And that does help the podcast a great deal. What really helps us most is if you tell someone else about the podcast. When you have that conversation with your coworkers or your classmates about Once Upon a Time, you should tell them, oh, man, or if it's a girl, maybe you'd say, oh, woman, you gotta listen to this podcast about the TV show Once Upon a Time, because they explain this theory, or because they included my feedback on their podcast, or because
they were so wrong.
Yeah, whatever it takes. Tell someone else about the podcast, especially with International Podcast Day on September 30th. But if you missed this before September 30th, it's fine to tell someone else about the podcast on a different day. Just Podcast Day, September 30th, is a great day and a great excuse to be able to tell other people about your favorite podcast. Please connect with us on Twitter for our ongoing conversations and things that we discover and want to share with you, and certain late-breaking announcements on Twitter @OncePodcast, and you can follow each of us individually on Twitter. I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter @TheDanielJLewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin on Twitter @Phlegon. That's PHLEGON.
And I did not have my stuff together yet. This podcast would not be possible without our great team of volunteers. So special thanks to Jack for writing our show notes, John Buchanan for editing our episodes, Hunter Hathaway and Jacqueline for providing our spoilers. You'll hear from them in a moment. Keb for masterminding our timeline. Wow, there are names I've had to cross out because they're no longer with us. Like, they're not dead, but I'm just saying they've had to no longer be available. And it's just kind of sad to see that. Right? The list of people.
But their souls weren't obliterated, so
yeah,
it's fine.
So let me just do this again. Let me do this wrap up again, because I was kind of verbose in how I explained Twitter. For being a social network built around 140 characters, I could have said that more briefly. Please follow us on Twitter @OncePodcast for late-breaking announcements, and make sure that you join us for our live shows Sunday nights at 9:15 p.m. Eastern and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. That schedule and the ability to watch live and participate in the chat room, even during the showing of Once Upon a Time, is over at oncepodcast.com/live. Please connect with each of us individually as well. I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter @TheDanielJLewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin on Twitter @Phlegon. That's PHLEGON.
Special thanks to our whole team of volunteers who make this podcast possible episode after episode. So special thanks to Jack for writing our show notes, John Buchanan for editing our episodes, Hunter Hathaway and Jacqueline for providing spoilers. You'll hear from them in a moment. Jacqueline and Matthew Paul for moderating the forums, Keb for masterminding our timeline, and to my co-hosts, Jeremy, Aaron, Hunter, and Jacqueline for hosting this podcast with me. And until next time, have a nice nap while Mommy helps barbecue mean old Mr. Hyde. And thanks for listening. Once Podcast is a proud member of Noodle.mx Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at Noodle.mx. Big thanks to our heroes for supporting this episode of the podcast. If you would like to be a hero too, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero. You get cool access to things like bloopers, and you know that you are supporting the podcast and helping make it possible. So please visit oncepodcast.com/hero, and thank you for your support. And we're finished.
We're finished.
Now,
Hey, that was rare. I got more excited for the rest of the season after doing the podcast.
yikes.
What? Yikes.
That's rare?
Well, you know how I am. Often, even an episode that I liked, when we pick it apart for the podcast, I go, dang it, I like it less now.
No.
But there are little, like, interconnected threads that I didn't see as interconnected when we watched. So the podcast did for me what we hope it does for everybody else. Instead of getting more critical, I actually feel like I got less critical. I got more excited about what they set with the premiere than I was when we went in.
Huh.
Instead of being like, that was great, and then going, wait, what about that? And what about that? Oh, and that's not consistent. Darn it, I hate this episode. It was the opposite, kind of.
Yeah. Now, let me double check here, but I don't think I have the spoilers to play. No, I don't. So I can't play spoilers live, which is a bit of a bummer. It also won't go into YouTube. So, hey, if you are watching the recording on YouTube right now, then please go to oncepodcast.com/258. If the link doesn't work, then the episode isn't published yet, because we tend to publish these about a day after they're recorded. But if you want the spoilers, then go to that address, or oncepodcast.com, subscribe to the podcast, listen to the episode there, download it. You could just jump to about an hour and 40 minutes or so into the podcast, or basically until you hear a female voice, and then that's most likely Hunter and Jacqueline talking spoilers, and just go back and you can find it. But I'm sure there are some great spoilers in there. I don't have the spoiler clips. There was a little technical issue with uploading them, I believe, so they're not edited together yet. But those will be in the downloaded version of the podcast. I don't have them here to share with you live, or if you're watching the replay on YouTube.
Okay, bye.
I got to get better at the camera switching.
Oh, crap.
Maybe.
Was it on me the whole time?
No. No, but it tends to stay on me too much.
Oh. Well, that's all right.
Like I'll switch it to me when I know you're finished talking, and then I have something to say, and then I get wrapped up in what I'm saying, and then you respond, and I'm wrapped up in that response, and I realize, oh, I never switched to you when you responded.
Aha.
But maybe I should have a volunteer come in and switch our cameras for us. It's like, you press this button whenever the other person talks. Press it. You press that button.
We should have a volunteer for that. Mm-hmm. Yep. Maybe when they come to vacuum.
Oh yeah, the cleaning crew could do that, or the people who dropped off the phone book.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for people who deliver phone books, because do they know? I'm sorry, this is so sad.
Here, I brought you a full recycling bin.
Yeah, or here, I brought you something that we both know you're never going to use. It's just going to end up in the trash. My gift to you is meaningless. It's gotta stink to be a phone book not salesperson, but delivery person. Mm-hmm. So, hey, if you're a phone book salesperson...
Like a bathrobe for a dog.
Well, that's even nicer than a phone book.
You're right.
Someone...
What's as useless as a phone book?
Then again, families with kids probably love the phone books because they work as seat risers. Did your parents ever do that with you?
I think so, but I feel like people now don't improvise. They don't use anything as anything else. They just go, we need a way for the child to sit higher. Let's go to the store and let's go to Oshkosh and let's drive 30 minutes to the nice mall and let's go to Oshkosh and let's get sort of a custom seat, booster seat. That's what we'll get.
Oh,
and it's about the thickness of a phone book.
Oh my!
That's the one we
bagosh.
want. I think that's what people do now. Maybe just some people. Maybe just the middle class.
Your phone books are pointless. That's what Rumple would say. All right. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna head out. Sorry that there aren't spoilers.
We're gonna arms out too
to share with you. But we'll be back on Sunday. Well, I'll be back, and Aaron will be on the podcast with me on Sunday doing our initial reactions. Please join us for the live chat during the live show, and tell others about the podcast. And please do celebrate International Podcast Day. Tell someone else about podcasts. It doesn't have to be ours. It could be you take someone's phone from their hand and you show them how to subscribe to a great podcast you think they might like.
Make sure you know them and you have permission to take it from their hand.
Yeah, that's optional.
Oh.
No.
Not all views expressed and all that.
Yeah. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
And we'll be back on Sunday. Bye.
He will.